Hey everybody, it's Brian here from the Cinema Psycho Show. Just wanted to give a little prelude to this episode because we did record this before the pandemic, and obviously things have changed that were mentioned in this show that we just wanted to address first. So we're going to be going to Kire Paputts, the director of the Last Porno Show. He did a fantastic interview and was actually scheduled to screen at the Parkway Theater here in Pittsburgh last week, actually. And unfortunately, because of the coronavirus pandemic, that didn't happen, but we still wanted to put out this amazing interview. So I'll throw it over to Elaine, who'll get us started, and just enjoy the show. And stay safe out there, everybody.
This week, we sit down with the director of The Last Porno Show. The director, Kire Paputts, tells us all about the process of making the film, and this film is coming to Pittsburgh to the Parkway Theater on April 3rd, 4th, and 5th, so you definitely want to check out this interview and see if it arouses you. Hit it.
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, and my fellow co-hosts and filmmakers, John and Elaine Woolscroft.
Which one am I?
You're the filmmaker and the Woolscroft.
But
Oh,
but I thought you
okay.
were the filmmaker in the Wolves, bro.
Oh my God.
Oh,
What
wow.
have we done?
I'm the one with the pee-pee.
You're the one with the pee-pee.
Oh, speaking of PPs,
Speaking
we have
of
a
PPs.
great interview today with the filmmaker of The Last Porno Show.
And this is a real treat because a couple months ago, we reviewed The Last Porno Show.
Mm-hmm.
It was a film that got sent to us. We loved it.
Yeah, it screened at the Toronto Film Festival.
Toronto International Film Festival. Yeah.
So cool, so cool.
And what's great is that since we did that episode, we've really got to know Kire. He's a great filmmaker. And the best part is that he's coming to town. He's coming to Pittsburgh to screen his film.
Very excited, very excited.
He's going to get more into like the behind the scenes of making this film, his perspective as a filmmaker, some of the challenges and things that he's overcome with this film. But big thing I want to get across is that this film is coming to town. It's coming to here on April 3rd, 4th, and 5th at the Parkway Theater in Pittsburgh. Some people that we know may actually be there to moderate it.
Some psychos of cinema, perhaps?
Psychos of cinema, perhaps. Well, John, Elaine, you all might be there.
Oh,
We
shit.
might be there.
You guys might be there.
Yeah.
You coming?
To moderate the Q&A for this film, and Kire himself will be there.
Which is
for
so
at
great.
least one of the screens, I think he said.
There's
possibly
literally
two.
nothing better than watching a film with the filmmaker.
Yes.
There's nothing better than that. It's
Especially with the
amazing.
Q&A when you can,
Right, ask them
How
stuff.
many
It's
times
so
have you
cool.
left any kind of movie and you're like, I really want to talk to the filmmaker why they did this or why
Yeah,
this
of
happened.
course.
But and it's amazing that when we did the review of this, it really helped grow our podcast. And with a podcast, you can't really see anything. So I think it's fair to say that our podcast is a grower, not a shower.
Oh, look
Plus,
at you.
plus, we also didn't spoil that film. Like
Right.
that's a rarity.
That's true, because
Where
we wanted people to go see
We
it.
wanted people to go see it.
Now you can go
and
see
now
it
you can.
in Pittsburgh.
And there's other places you can see it too, but obviously we're thrilled about the Pittsburgh one.
Absolutely.
But
and Kire was the coolest, man.
Yeah.
But obviously we can let him describe all that. So, should we just dive right in,
Yeah.
folks?
Let's do it.
Let's dive right in. Here is Kire Paputts with talk about Last Porno Show. So take it away.
Do you like the solar system?
Yeah, it's quite cool, planets and stuff.
And today we are joined with, and I hope I'm not butchering your name. I know that when we did the review of the Last Porno Show, I know that I butchered your name because I was looking at Ron Jeremy's kind of Facebook
right.
post, which he butchered it. But we're here with Kire Paputts.
Got it, man. That's
Did I
it.
get it?
Nice.
That's
Oh,
Nailed it.
yay!
Yeah.
You redeemed yourself,
Yay,
Brian.
I have not failed. Because I mean, my last name gets fucked up all the time. Everyone says Cottingham or Cottydon or not or Cotlington. So
Right.
I feel the pain that you've probably felt forever. Yeah. But we're here with Kire Paputts, and a couple months ago, Kire had sent us his film, The Last Porno Show, and we reviewed it, and honestly, we were blown away by the film.
It was amazing.
It was really amazing, and it was probably I would say it's our most high caliber film that we've had sent to us. One, it was going to be featured at the Toronto International Film Festival, which is a big fucking deal. And then to find out that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kire, but this is your second film that you've had at the Toronto International Film Festival.
Second feature. I've had a short there as well.
Okay,
that's
this is
awesome.
your third one.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Which I can't even comprehend that,
Yeah.
But to have, a filmmaker of that caliber reach out to our little Rinky Dink podcast and ask us to review his film was a great honor for us. And on top of that, the film is awesome.
Thank you.
It really is awesome.
Before we jump into The Last Porno Show in and of itself, can you give us a little bit of background on yourself as a filmmaker?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a graduate of Ryerson University's film program, which is I guess, one of the top film programs in Canada. So I graduated, I'm going to date myself, so 2007. And I've been kind of just doing my own thing since then. So I've been, I started off making shorts, graduate, I guess, eventually managed to get my first, I made some actually featured docs as well. So I kind of work in both worlds. And then, I just been kind of slowly working my way up. I'm making very low budget films, things that I'm mostly relying on, Arts Council grants, crowdfunding, some of my own money. And then, in Canada, we have some pretty good tax credits for film here. So I can get a bit of money that way as well. Kind of just kind of finding just ways to kind of get a small budget together to make my kind of, I guess, weird outsider art films or whatever I'm doing. And on the side, I do a lot of video corporate kind of bullshit to kind of pay the bills. So, that's where I'm at.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then with a movie like The Last Porno Show, obviously that title immediately grabs you. Has it been a detriment or a bonus to have a title like that, like when you're sending it out?
I think the title's definitely a bonus. I think the opening shot is when you either really lose people or they really like you. So it's kind of like the title. I always thought was definitely. I wanted to jump out. I wanted to grab you right away. I think that the problem then is it's whether I think if you can get past the first shot, then I think we're okay. But I think So for me, I don't know. I mean, it's also kind of like a throwback to the Last Picture Show. Mm-hmm. Which is iconic, I guess, American cinema, right? And so I'm not necessarily a big fan of the film, but I thought, people who are fans would, they would maybe appreciate that as well. So I kind of thought that'd be an interesting kind of way to jump on the back of that.
Yeah, that opening shot definitely
Hey, they say your opening shot should set the mood for the rest of the movie.
To describe it, it's basically a tracking shot with a Steadicam where you're on basically looking at a pornographic film going on, and people jerking off.
Yeah,
one guy jerking off.
People doing a pee-wee. Yeah,
people doing a pee-wee.
Yeah, totally.
One guy jerking off, and it's great because it sets the stage for that world. And I would say the one thing that I really loved about your film, aside from the characters that you're creating, is the world that they exist in.
Yeah.
And I know that, look at the behind the scenes stuff, finding that theater, from what sounds like the theater was a curse and a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
A curse please speak to the theater.
Yeah, I mean, because so I grew up around the corner from there. It's in the east end of Toronto. And back in the day, they only showed Indian, Tamil films. Yeah. It wasn't even English speaking films. So I never went there. But my dad, who also grew up in the same neighborhood, used to go there and he'd watch sci-fi films in the early 60s and stuff like that. So it's always been around. But yeah, the place was just kind of sitting empty. And the guy who owns it's just a piece of shit. He's like a slumlord. And just the place really needs to be condemned. I mean, it's just between just like infestation of like, insects and rats and like just the actual ceiling is like caving in and like there's not even a projection booth. I mean, there is, but there's nothing running in there.
Right.
All the projection booth shots in our film, we had to film at another cinema. We had to marry those cinemas together. Yeah. So they didn't even have a working. They have like some old film projectors up there, but they didn't have any kind of like digital system.
Yeah.
There's barely a sound system. Even the screen is like a big piece of vinyl plastic that's stretched out. And it's all dirty and stuff and scuff marks on it. It's just like total just dump. It's too bad because there's not a lot of cinemas left like that, like independent ones in Toronto. So I'd hope, I think the guy I think he wants to sell. I think he wants to, he wants to get the right price.
Yeah.
Whatever happens. But it would be nice if someone with some money could come in and just really, do like a kind of like a, just really do it up proper, just to gut it and just to go from start. But I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, again, it was great because it was affordable because I had no money. But it was bad because, my crew and cast are getting like fucking bed bug bites and stuff like 3 days into shooting.
Oh, that's awful.
Well, luckily it wasn't bed bugs. Apparently it was, I had to call somebody in because the owner was basically like, well, my place is clean. If things are happening. Yeah, he's like, if things are happening, you guys brought the stuff in yourself. And I'm kind of like, what do you do, right? Like I couldn't afford to shut down production, so I did. We never would have got the film finished. So I basically had to just go out of my own pocket and pay for an exterminator to come in like that night and spray out like, overnight, and kind of by morning we'd be okay again.
Oh, wow.
Again, costs I had to eat because the owner wasn't going to accept or, or pay for that. So it's just stuff like that. So I'm really glad to be out of there. But it's funny, they're actually doing a screening of the film at that cinema. So since we finished filming there's another younger guy in Toronto who, God bless him, like he's trying to like he's basically.
I think we both know him.
Oh, do you? Kaylin, yeah.
Yes, I met Kaylin.
Kaylin.
I met Kaylin at the Macabre Fair Film Festival. He was screening his film. And I was screening my documentary at the time. Great guy. Great guy.
I don't know him that well. It's funny because I really appreciate what he's doing there because he's showing some really cool stuff. Like Samurai Cop and all these really kind of like just things that I'm really into.
Samurai Cop. Yeah.
Good pick.
Yeah, this crazy shit, right? I'm kind of like, oh, this is great, but it's like I can't go back there. I'm just too fucking like. This is too much stress still.
PTSD.
Honestly, it's exactly what it is. But he reached out. He came to TIFF and he was like, he watched it because he'd heard we'd filmed there. He was like, hey man, I really want to do a screening here. And at first I was kind of hesitant because I just don't want to go back there. Mm-hmm. But since I've kind of softened up, I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to support the guy because I think what he's doing is fantastic. Yeah. I just think like if he had a better venue, I think he'd be doing even better.
Right.
But so that's going to be playing there at the end of March as well. So I'm going to go down for that and just not sit down in the seats, kind of just stand the whole time. I think is probably the safest bet. And just do like a Q&A and stuff. And maybe I'll give like a poster giveaway or something. It's like, maybe the one person who's sitting in the same seat as Mike Dent, who's masturbating, maybe they'll get a free poster.
Hey, that's a good idea.
Right? Yeah, it's not bad. So, so we'll see how that goes over. But, we kind of got tracked there. Where were we going with that?
No, but I mean,
you know about the theater, yeah.
But then that's great.
Yeah.
So with the Last Porno Show, since it's basically your second feature, third film that's screened at TIFF, where did the story come from? Like that was going to
be my question.
we basically we took it as it's basically a son kind of coming to grips with his father, and kind of resolving that relationship, while at the same time almost dipping into his father's persona. Yeah, which that whole part got real weird. I mean, I appreciated it, but I mean, where for you did you write this film as well as direct it, or did you bring in another writer to do it?
No, I usually write everything I do. I mean, I think it's tough because I never really wanted to be a writer, but I kind of just had to do it out of necessity because I just don't know a lot of writers.
Mm-hmm.
I think people who are really interested in the kind of things that I want to like look at. So I was kind of just, I mean, writing, it's getting better for me now. It's easier, but at first it's such a long it's just like, draft after draft and just revising and getting feedback. It's just something that, is really torturous for a long time. But for me, originally me and two other buddies had written a draft of this script. It was totally different. We're talking like 15 years ago or more. And we didn't know what we were doing. I was basically going to university, had no idea what I was doing. We wrote the script. It was more centered around 3 different people at that time. And, just a million reasons. It wasn't going to happen because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. So, fast forward maybe to like 3-4 years ago, I decided, well, let's revisit this. Let's at least read it and see what's happening. So I read it. And I was like, well, there's some interesting stuff here. So I just took the idea of the setting of the porno cinema, and I kind of just totally rewrote everything else around that idea. And for me, for sure, like most things I work on are pretty personal. And this one, I was kind of wanted to look at the idea of, do we become our parents? As I'm getting kind of older, I'm noticing more and more, I'm catching myself doing things or saying things that my dad would do or something. And it's kind of weird, right? And so for me, I wanted to look at that idea. And also me and my dad, we've had a pretty interesting relationship growing up. He was like a musician and, so he basically lived like that sex, drugs, rock and roll lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So I was exposed to a lot of weird, interesting things growing up. But I think the difference is, he's always kind of been in my life. So we've always, we've had time to kind of like hash out our issues and come to terms with certain things. But I was interested in kind of exploring the idea of like, well, what if he wasn't around? What if, for whatever reason, we just didn't have that closure, and what would that look like? And so I decided to set that in a porno cinema. I thought it'd be an interesting place. Yeah. So there's a bit of definitely some personal stuff in there, but obviously took a lot of liberties as well. So.
And just out of curiosity, because you mentioned, obviously that, you wrote the thing and everything. I always like to ask, independent filmmakers, pre-production, production, post-production. Do you prefer one or the other? Do you hate one, love one? Is it all good, or what is your preference when it comes to pre-production and post?
I do love it all. I think at this level, the most stressful is probably production for sure. Because in pre, like I can do so much on my own. It just takes more time, and I can just, you can really. There's not really anybody at this case really on me to have certain things. I can just do what I want, which is great. And post production is like, once you've shot everything, you can just take you can take a moment, take a breath, and then you can take as much time as you want in post production because everything is there. Hopefully, for me, I think although I love production because at the level I'm working at in terms of budget, it's just so fucking stressful. I mean, shooting this film was easily the most stressed I've ever been in my whole life. And like not in a good way. And just like, at bed, like staring at the ceiling, like wondering, can I even finish this thing? Cause like, so many things go wrong and come up that are unexpected, whether it's like the cinema or we had other issues because you're working with, a lot of the crew, not all of them, but like some of the grips and they're not as seasoned. And so, just things are getting fucked up, left and right. And because, I'm the sole producer, director, in this case, I'm also wearing the hat of like locations manager and even like transportation. Like I'm doing like a million things, right? So if one of those things goes wrong, I have to switch hats really quick, and it's just it's not fun, Like we filmed at Al's apartment scenes. Just a nice guy I met online. He's like, I'm looking for an apartment, and he offered his place for free. And I was like, awesome, but just like when we're there, things are getting damaged, not on purpose, or things are going missing, and it's just kind of he's fucking flipping out, and he has every reason to, right? Of course, right. And so it's like I have to deal with him being super pissed off and mad while I'm trying to direct, Mike Dent masturbating in the front row of the cinema, right? So it's just like it's just kind of like this weird, it was by the end I was just so happy that we actually had finished it. But yeah, I mean. I didn't have a lot. I think by the last few days I was having fun because I knew we were going to finish it. Mm-hmm. But for the first 3 weeks, I was in a horrible place. Horrible place.
What's it, about 4 weeks for the shoot, or how long did it take to shoot it?
Yeah, so we did 22 days, which is like a luxury for any indie film. Yeah, I mean, most indie films with even like a way bigger budget than mine are like, 16, 17 days, right?
Yeah.
I just don't think, I don't know, like for me, like it doesn't make any sense to rush through all of that and like really, because you're going to be losing stuff, you're going to be compromising more than you want to. It's like, take your time, do it, and then, you have so much more opportunity and play in the edit, right? So for me, yeah, like, I mean, I could make a movie in 17 days if I really wanted to. I just don't think it would be as good as I want it to be, so.
Can you speak to how you approach directing? I think there are different kinds of directors out there. There are people who, at least for me, I found, they go by the script and say, okay, say the lines as I wrote them.
Yeah.
Or they're a bit more improvisational and say, okay, tell me how you, the actor, view the lines that I've written. Where do you fall in that? And can you speak to some of the challenges you faced as a director in getting that performance out of your actors?
It's funny because like I spent a lot of time writing, like getting the script to like really where I want it, like, and making sure everything is, how I see it. But then it doesn't matter, because once you get to production, I mean, again, when I'm writing, like I think I'm writing for like a, not Hollywood actors, but like bigger names, like even local and stuff. The problem is, it's kind of like, in this case, like I couldn't afford to go union, I had to go non-union, which probably in the long run probably actually helped the film, because you're not going to find a lot of those kind of people in my movie in the union in Toronto, actors union. So I was basically, at that point, it's kind of like, because a lot of people I even hired or I knew, they're like, this is their first time in front of a camera. So I'm very much open to kind of just, getting the feel. Like basically, this is where we need to get to. We need to hit these certain beats, and however we get there, we get there. And I think just there is some fun to that. And, it's kind of, you don't know what's really going to happen. And sometimes the best stuff kind of happens out of those situations, right, that you weren't expecting. So I think for me, like, I think directing is being able to step back and obviously have your idea, but don't let, don't get so focused on one idea that it kind of like jeopardizes, the film or the moment, right? If it's not working, it's not working, right? So it just, you have to, I think for me, it's being able to really quickly adapt and just kind of figure a workaround with certain things. And again, I come from a bit of a doc background as well, so I think that's kind of helped me with my narrative stuff, just kind of like being in the moment and just going with whatever happens. Yeah.
Kind of in that same vein, what was your process for casting this film?
So I would say about 50% or more was just people I just had, like, I just knew, like, in my Rolodex or whatever. And then the other bits were, we did like, it's funny, I think most of the roles that were casted for like an open casting call were mostly the women. Like Victoria, who played Ashley, Kat, who played kind of the young Julia, and people like that. That was all just like an open casting call. Even the kids too were open casting call. I mean, with the kids, I mean, it was like, the thing with casting with this movie is like, I was very upfront about exactly what was going to happen and how we were going to do it. Cause I didn't want, I mean, I was making this thing in the height of like the Me Too movement. Right. And so, which, obviously was, I wanted to make sure that, this movie didn't end up, with Harvey Weinstein somewhere. Right. So,
no, you don't want that.
You don't want that. Right. So I was very upfront, and I think because of that, we didn't get a lot of, people coming out. But the people who did, we lucked out. I mean, like the kids was probably the roughest, because it really comes down to the parents. Like can you find a parent who is cool enough and confident enough to kind of let their kid be in something like this and like trust me enough, right? So in terms of like the guy who plays like the little Indian kid, I guess he's called Cinema Boy. He has a name but we never say it, so I just never used it. But like he was the only kid of color that's why he got the job. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it was the only option, and he did a great job, and he was really fun. His parents were really cool, but things like that, those like casting was probably a big, also very stressful thing as well. So, so half was about that, and then half was just people I knew. Like I made a doc called the Last Pogo Jumps Again, which is about the first wave of Toronto punk music, and so a lot of people are just from that scene. Who've, obviously, still think they're 18 years old, right? And kind of living that lifestyle. And so I thought that was kind of perfect for the kind of people that I wanted to get in this film. So
nice.
Yeah. And Nathaniel, the lead, he's like one of my best friends. Good guy. He's like funny. He's an actor. He doesn't really, I mean, he's not like out there like really going to get it, but he's extremely talented. And I knew if I was going to go non-union, he was the guy to go with. So
he should go out there and get it, because
I know. He's trying. He's
crazy
trying.
Good in this.
I know, right? But and also it was good about Nathaniel was that I think it was nice that since we have a good relationship already, like he could trust me like I could trust him, right? It wasn't. Because I asked him to do quite a bit in this, right? And the fact that he did it, I mean,
he does kind of try to have sex with the television, so
right. Well, I mean that's
and it works. It works.
It does work.
And he fucking just went for it, and it was great. It was he just did it, and that was a pretty fun day on set. People were like, "How's this gonna happen? How's this gonna work?" Right? And so it's kind of nice to see that come together, and that's it always kind of gets the crowd going anytime we screen it. That's kind of like the moment people like you'll get a lot of like applause or like things like that. So that's always nice.
And speaking of like we talk about cast, but can you speak to crew? Because when we got this film, it's an independent film, but it looks like it has budget tenfold of what it does. Like,
thank you.
Yeah, it's very professional. Like, do you have a cinematographer that you work with all the time, or do you bring somebody in, each time, or can you speak to the the technical end of things, and what did you shoot on? I know some of our fans won't care about that, but what
we care.
Yeah, we
very much care.
But what did
it's your podcast? Fuck them.
Yeah.
Right? What do you want to know? I'll tell you. So the crew, So like, luckily, I think the best thing about going to film school was basically meeting, like-minded people who you're hopefully going to work with and form relationships with. So in that case, James Klopko is one of my really good friends and cinematographer. He's done basically all of my shorts and some other stuff together. He didn't do my first feature, but he did this one. And again, just like, I didn't really have the money to do, so it was nice that he basically did it for basically next to nothing. But again, I think he believed in the project. He believed in me, which helps. And my editor, Mike Piero, again, another guy I went to school with, he also cut The Rainbow Kid, my first feature narrative. And again, he basically worked for free until I got some money to pay him later on. So it's nice to have people, who are not only talented, but I think believe in the project and believe in in what I'm doing. So that really helps. I think goes a long way to have those kind of relationships, because we spend a lot of time in pre-production. Me and Klopko, we talk about our shot list and figuring out how do you want to do this and how are we going to accomplish this, and so that was really great. Some of the other keys, like the Judith who did wardrobe, I went to school with her as well at Ryerson. She did a great job. I didn't work with the art team at all. It's the first time I worked with any of them. I thought they did a really great job as well, considering their limitations and budget and stuff. So, and yeah, it was a mix of that. And then basically, I would say the other producer I was kind of working with, / PM, Aya, someone I just met, but who was also really interested in the project and just down for doing it. I think that's the most important thing. I think is finding people who are actually interested in what you're doing and aren't there for the paycheck, because in my case, there is no paycheck really. I mean, there's a bit. I mean, you can pay your rent with it, but it's you're not going to be, it's not close to what you're going to be working, doing like a union show or something like that, right? So I think that makes the biggest difference is surrounding yourself with people who, again, are talented, but also I think really believe in what you're doing and get it, because that's going to make the world of a difference, I think, for sure. Yeah, and then like every grips and gaffers and all that's kind of like a revolving door of people, who would do our film for a few days, and then they would go to like a better paying gig for a week and come back maybe. So it was one of those kind of things. But yeah.
And what did you shoot on?
Red.
Ah, nice.
Red. I forget which build. Dragon, or something. I don't know. I always lose track. There's always so many. There's always like updating that stuff, right? But yeah. So we started in 8K, which was crazy, and then I couldn't keep. I was crazy. Like we were so like our budget was so tight. I couldn't afford to keep shooting in 8K because we were running out of drive space.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Jesus Christ, what was that like 100 gigs per minute?
Yeah, for people that don't know, that takes up a lot of room. So all the footage.
Yeah, so we had to go down to 7K, which really isn't much of a difference, but you're gonna finish in 4K anyways, right? No one's you don't need an 8K image for something. So
if you're doing visual effects, maybe you do. But
yeah, for sure, like the dick and stuff like that, the glory hole. I mean, that's all. I guess it came in handy for that. And stuff. I don't want to ruin too much, but I'll just leave it at that. And then, and I guess, so I mean, and I guess there's some luxury. I mean, later on, if you want to blow up an image a bit, you can, right? Which we did a little bit of that as well. So that always comes in handy. But yeah, I mean, the red. I've always only shot in the red. I think for most of my, at least narrative stuff. Yeah.
Now. You screened this film. It had its premiere at Toronto International Film Festival, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was the reception like to it?
It's weird. It's like Toronto's a weird place. I mean, I'm so happy that TIFF selected it and it played there, and I'm honored to be part of that. The thing is, like with Canada, it's like first of all, you're competing with a bunch of large Hollywood movies in terms of press, and second of all, I think Canada. They'll usually pick one or two Canadian films and kind of really champion those throughout the festival, and the rest kind of maybe get a mention. Like we didn't get any real press, like big press at all in terms of local stuff. Part of that was because first of all, I think I hired a wrong publicist, and then second of all was because we just didn't have the budget to compete with everybody else. So it was mostly smaller blogs, and there was some like local magazines here in Toronto. Reception was pretty mixed, which I was expecting anyways. Like, this movie is not for everybody, right? So going into that, I'm fine with that. But yeah, most of it was probably just people who just didn't like it or just didn't get it, which is fine. I'll take it because for every one of those, there's someone who does like it, right? So it's just what it is. So I try not to get too hung up on reviews and press. I kind of just, I'm just doing my thing, and if you're into it, great. If not, get better taste.
That's good perspective to have on it.
Yeah. So it was okay. I mean, I think it's funny. Like we screened in Torino like right afterwards in November, and it was way better reception there, way more press, way more. It was part of their like Midnight Madness program at Torino, and all three shows are basically like sold out, and like people were it was into it, like they got it right. It was like they just were into it, so it's funny that way. I always felt like film would probably do better in Europe anyways, or maybe parts of the States. So that's kind of like my focus now is trying to just focus more in international screenings. So yeah.
And the film definitely has, to me, like a 70s vibe to it in terms of like a lot of the art films that came out of the 70s. Was that something that you were focusing on, or is it more of just a coincidence, maybe something that just I felt?
No, a bit of both. I mean, I think I grew up watching a lot of those films because I basically, whatever, my dad watched or like, that was kind of like what I was raised on, right? So I remember like I'd be watching things like Pink Flamingos when I was like 10 or younger, and not really understanding what it was exactly, but just laughing. It was so stupid and silly. And then as you get older, you go, oh, this is actually pretty fucked up. But so I think, or even like that Clockwork Orange, kind of like, watching that, like, I mean, 7 or 6 maybe even. And again, not really understanding it.
That's an intense film for a 7-year-old to watch.
Right? Yeah, but my dad's a character for sure, right? Yeah. So that's probably where I get it from. But yeah, like like the whole like sped up sex scene, like just laughing because it's kind of silly and funny, right? But then probably not really understanding like the whole rapes, stuff before that or after, and kind of like, so it's yeah. I mean, it probably subconsciously has done some major damage to me. But yeah, so that's kind of like, I guess, what I was exposed to and grown up with, or even like Taxi Driver and that, right? So just kind of, those are the films I kind of still, I think I still go back to, right? So, yeah.
And how do you get this film out? Like, so once you have it completed, what you talked about, festivals and cities that it's going to, like, how does one in general, and then you specifically, get this film out to as much of an audience as possible?
Well, I think if you want to show it as is, you got to do it yourself, which is the big thing. We've been approached by some distributors, both local and even international sales agents. But the problem is, I just either don't think they're the right fit, or they won't give you any money up front, which means you won't see any money once they have it, and it also means they want to make cuts, so they think they can sell it to TV or whatever, right? Which at that point would come out of my pocket because I'm not getting any money, and I just don't have the money to go back and cut things anyways. So in my case, it's kind of turned out where like I'm just gonna have to self-distribute, which is it's just more work, right? But like I can do it, so it's I think anybody can do it. I think in this case, as an independent filmmaker, I think, and other people listening, hopefully, is like, I think what really helped for me, like I'm lucky the fact that we have the leverage of TIFF with the film. Like I can use that as like, hey, premiere at TIFF. I think people at least will take it a bit more seriously, or at least like watch it at first, right? As opposed to, well, I made this movie, it hasn't played anywhere, it's not done anything. So because I think it's the thing with indie filmmaking is like really trying to know how to like leverage certain things and knowing how to really to take advantage of those like little lucky things you do get, and trying to stretch it out as far as you can. So in my case, I've sent it to other festivals worldwide. It hasn't played really anywhere else in Canada. The States, not yet. I'm waiting to hear back. I was hoping to get into South by Southwest, but that didn't work out. Torino played it. But I'm kind of getting tired of waiting for festivals, so I'm like, well, I'll just do it myself. So I've been reaching out to like just local indie cinemas, like Parkway or other places around the States, and just saying, hey, like I have this film, this is what it did, do you want to check it out? Maybe do like a one night or like a weekend. And it's been pretty great that way.
Wait, did you say Parkway Theater in Pittsburgh, April 3rd, 4th, and 5th?
Yeah.
Get out there, folks.
Come on out.
And of course, you're coming the same weekend that I'm literally leaving the city and going on vacation.
Sorry, man.
We got you covered, homie.
No, it's all right. John and I will hold down the fort.
Yeah, but I think that's always, I think, the struggle that filmmakers face is you spend all this time making this movie, all this money that you maybe either have or don't have, and then it comes down to distribution, and I think a lot of people do hang themselves up on, well, it's got to play at the festivals first. Right. So I think it's not necessarily, because I've seen filmmakers who they'll have 20 laurels on their posters. Yeah. And it's like, that's great. You've got 20 places that it's played, but then when it comes down to where can I see it as the layman, it's like, well, it's not playing anywhere, or no, it's not on Netflix, or no, it's not on Amazon, or no one picked it up. Right. And then it does kind of come to a matter of, how do you leverage that? How do you get the best deal for your film? And I don't think enough filmmakers think that far ahead.
No, and I think you should. I think especially nowadays when no one's paying anything for content anymore. Yeah. You really have to, just sit down and make a real game plan of what you want to do. Because like anybody can put their film up on iTunes and Google Play. Just cost a few bucks to get it. What's it called? An agitator? Is that what it's
aggregator.
Aggregate, yeah. Like, you know, and it's like you can do that yourself, right? And you can keep all your profits. You don't need, you know, because there's a lot of like really shady distributors out there, smaller ones.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, people approach me and I look at the films in their catalog and I haven't heard of any of these fucking things, all right? I'm kind of like, well, that's just going to happen in my movies. It's going to get, you know, they're going to maybe make some kind of like, they're going to put it up online to make a few bucks, or maybe they'll make some sales somewhere and I'll never see anything. So it's just really just not worth it. I got kind of fucked with my last movie, The Rainbow Kid, in terms of that, where it's kind of like, I didn't know anything. I was excited, like, oh, a distributor wants to put it out in Canada. And they put it out and, you know, it played some cinemas across Canada in like weird places, like small towns and like BC, that like no one's gonna watch this fucking movie about a guy with Down syndrome in like Kamloops, BC. Like, what the hell are they doing, right? They should be playing in like major cities. And then, you know, they made some TV sales in that in Canada, and it's like I'll never see a cent, because all the money goes back to paying off them basically and getting all their expenses quotes down before I see a cent. So I'm you know, until I get the rights back to the film, like, you know, a few years from now, I'll basically see nothing from it. And I just didn't want to go through that again with this movie. I was like, well, fuck it. You know, if no one's going to give me any money up front, I'll just do it myself, right? And again, I'm not going to be making like tons of money off this, but at least I'll control the rights and control what happens to it and where it's seen and how it's seen, right? You know,
right?
Yeah. So
I think it's also, you know, the distributors that I've seen, you want them to actually like market your movie,
sure. Yeah,
like not just put it on a shelf and call it a day,
yeah.
like. That seems to me to be the hardest thing to find, is not just a distributor who's going to, I'll put it on Netflix, I'll put it on Amazon, I'll put it on iTunes, but it's, are you going to push it? Are you actually going to like invest the advertising dollars for it? And I think for indie films, it's tough to find that. Like
sure.
I mean, I think especially, unfortunately, Last Porno Show, I think the subject matter scares some people away.
Oh yeah,
and I think sounds like, because you were saying that there were some distributors who asked for cuts. I don't know how you cut this thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could, you know, like, there's like, I've experimented, like, 'cause don't get me wrong, like, because like now that I'm kind of self-distributing, like if I can make a sale to somewhere in Canada, like Super Channel or one of those places, like, because at least I'll get money for it. Like, I'll fucking make those cuts and you fucking play it on TV all you want, right? I don't think it's still going to happen either way. I mean, you have to lose the opening shot. You would have to, I think, punch in on certain things to kind of lose certain graphic details. It can be done, but it's just like, I'm not going to do it unless I get some money for it, right? That's kind of the main thing. But I think it'll always exist as you know, I guess a director's cut or the cut. So, you know, at this moment, anytime people see the film, whether it's me doing screenings in Pittsburgh or wherever else, or festivals, like they're going to see like the full on film, right? Because again, I don't have anybody telling me that I can't, right? Which is great. So, but yeah, I think you could, I fucked around with it. Like, you can do it, but it's just like, you know, unless I get some money for it, I'm not going to bother. But it's not quite the same movie at that point, though. You know, it's kind of like,
that's what
like,
I'm. You know, that's kind of what I'm getting across. It's just like, you know, the sex and the graphic nature of it, that is part of the soul of the film. You know, that's part of the world that you're creating. And you could cut some things here or there, but you know how I think honestly that nudity and graphic sex, if it's done to support the plot, it's necessary. You could cut it out. You could blunt it, but is that gonna really? Is it gonna take away from the plot? And I think with your movie, it's not like you have one scene. It's throughout the entire film. It's the whole plot. It's the whole world that the characters exist in. And to cut it out because, I don't know, the certain segment of the populace is really up its own ass about nudity, and doesn't want to see it on TV. It just, maybe that's not the right place for it.
What about the last Square Dance show? That would be lovely.
But I mean, I get what you're saying, and honestly, I personally, for me, I probably wouldn't do it if I wasn't getting paid for it.
Sure,
But I just know that, like, in the only thing I can think of that's a contemporary to what you might be going through is the Kevin Smith film Zack and Miri Make a Porno. I don't know if you've ever seen that. So
haven't.
Okay, it's actually a good movie. They filmed it in Pittsburgh, but at the time, I remember when it was being marketed and when they were making the movie, and the title initially was Zack and Miri Make a Porno, and then halfway through, the powers that be did not like that title because of the nature of the film, so they changed it to Zack and Miri, which makes no sense because you watch the whole movie and it absolutely is them making a pornographic film. Right. So, it's unnecessary censorship.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Well, that's, I guess, the one blessing of being, an indie filmmaker who has no money is you can do whatever the hell you want.
That's
right. I have no one to answer to, right? Which is great. I mean, I kind of had a producer early on with the film who was trying to help get it made. He was there more for development. Nice guy. We tried some different things, but it just wasn't working out. And when I realized that it wasn't going to get, made that way, I was like, well, I'll just fucking do it myself again like I did with my last one. And he kind of disappeared at that point, I guess, figuring it's because it's not going to be something that I think is going to be really something he can sell or do this and that. So nice guy enough, but just kind of it's, I think in many ways, a lot of the things that did go wrong with the movie were like a blessing in disguise, again, I think it's just like learning to use those things to your advantage. Because if I had done this movie, say with union actors, it'd be very it'd be very different in terms of what they would be comfortable doing and be not allowed, but just it's harder to convince someone you don't know who's in the union to whip out their dick and start masturbating, as opposed to a 60-year-old punker in Toronto who has a huge dick and doesn't mind showing it off, right?
You should have got Michael Fassbender for this movie.
Yeah, totally, right? It's just it's like a baby's forearm,
Wow. Yes. I think this is officially our best interview ever, guys.
I can't, it's just like Mike was, and he was so, he was kind of nervous for the first day, because, he was really nervous the first day, obviously, right? And I remember he was drinking. And I didn't give him any booze, but he was just bringing in these tall cans of beer and just drinking them, I guess, to get in the right space. And then, but as the shoot went on, as more days went on, I remember by the last day of filming. So the last day of filming was the day we shot the opening scene, the opening shot, right? So it was day 22, and that's actually our last shot of the whole production was the opening shot. And by that point, I think everybody had seen so much and been through so much, nothing fazed anybody. I remember it was just another day. No one gave a shit. I remember it's funny because most of the people who'd been on the whole time didn't care, but we had a few people who it was their first day on set, right? So they're like, "What the fuck did I just walk into?" Right? And they're kind of because I remember talking to Mike. I'm like, "Hey, Mike, because we'd be sitting there filming, and in between takes, Mike would just leave his dick out. He wouldn't even bother pulling up his pants anymore. You pull up your pants when we're not filming. It's like, fuck it. It's easier to leave it out. And all right. And it's just that was just part of the nature by the end. We, remember just hanging out and also the last day. Yeah, right. And so I remember these people were just like, what? So only a few guys from the camera team who were like, what? And obviously the Steadicam guy, he had a lot to do. And I don't think, he really understood what he signed up for. He was nice enough and he did it, but yeah, and that's the same day we did that that whole weird thing with Candy. She's the woman on stage who's masturbating while the projections are being yelled at. So that was the same day. The last day was the craziest shit. Because that was the day I kind of found people like Candy and the other I call him the smoking masturbator who has that I guess German accent. Those are guys I just found on Craigslist. I was like, hey man, I'm looking for some people to come out and just fuck around. With themselves and with other people. And if you ask, they will come, right? And so we had people, they wanted to come out and just be promiscuous and have fun. And that was kind of the last day. It was kind of this crazy, weird, nothing got out of hand. It's funny if I had enough people who were actually interested in doing some kind of sex act together, I probably would have filmed it, but it didn't quite get to that point. But I mean, that's also part of the world. I mean, I think porn cinemas now, the ones that are left anyways, I mean, they're just really kind of like gay cruising spots. That's what it's come down to, right? Which is great. I mean, it's fine. Like, to each their own. You do what you got to do. But yeah, I mean, maybe you get the odd person who goes in with their partner to kind of just like watch something, but kind of like it's kind of dangerous. But for the most part, you're kind of going there to hook up with people, right? And so I wanted to kind of show that with this film. Yeah, I didn't quite get to that point, but I think it's still pretty explicit for what we did, so I'm happy with that. So
good.
Yeah.
So you're doing your U.S. tour basically, right? Do you want to speak to the cities you're going to be hitting, dates?
Like Pittsburgh,
like
April
Pittsburgh,
3rd, 4th,
maybe?
and 5th? Yeah.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh, Parkway Theater and Film Lounge, April 3rd, 4th, 5th. There's multiple screenings. I will be down. I'm going to be there for the whole weekend. I think I'm only going to be doing Q&As, though, for the Friday and 2 of the Saturday screenings. So come on out to that. I'm sure you'll have some questions after you watch the movie, so I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. We're doing New York on April 8th. That's going to be a fun show because the band who did the soundtrack, More Corny Youth, they're from New York, so they're going to do a live set before the screening.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So their whole thing, I don't know if you guys know them at all, but their whole thing is they do these things called reimagined soundtracks. And basically all their albums are scores they kind of rewrite for films. And then when they play live, it's kind of like they project the movie and they kind of play along to it with like their score of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Yeah, so that's how I first heard about them. They came to Toronto a few years ago with Goblin. They were touring with Goblin. And I never even heard of them, and I was like blown away. I was like, "Well, these guys are fucking awesome!" And I got their albums and realized right away these are the guys who need to do the soundtrack for my film. So yeah, they're going to be doing a live set, and also they're going to be selling the soundtrack from there. It comes out record store day, which I think is officially April 18th. The album
you can buy. Right. I remember that.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, you can buy that from their website. They're going to have a vinyl pressing and also, I think, digital download. So
very cool.
Yeah. And then Boston, I'm still working on at the end of April. I don't have a date yet, but check into our website.
Where's your website at?
www.lastpornoshow.com, and we'll have more info on there for you.
And we'll make sure in our show notes to definitely put the different dates that your film is playing.
Yeah.
Also, the Pittsburgh one, we may have, I don't know, 2 moderators there. I don't know. I heard there's going to be 2 moderators.
Somebody cool is going to be there.
Someone's cool.
Psycho Station, come on out. Yeah, if you love Elaine and tolerate me, we'll be there on Friday.
Please. I would love that. I would love. It's funny, Pittsburgh. I've only been to Pittsburgh once with my wife, and we came a few years ago. And the reason we came was to watch Corey Feldman and his Angels at the Hard Rock.
That's
nice.
Awesome. That's awesome.
All the way down and stayed the night just to watch that show.
That's so
I don't know
cool.
if you guys were there, but that was something special and unforgettable.
Excellent.
But we were only there for like a day and a half, but we both loved it so much. My wife actually wants to move to Pittsburgh now. For some reason. Yeah, I'm like, we were there for a day and a half. Like, let's just chill up for a second. It was cool though, but like,
don't do it. Don't give up your health care. Don't move here.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys got health care.
Hey, you can sign something that you can still use your Canadian health care in the United States.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Yeah, you can?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. It's good to know.
But I'm looking forward to exploring it more for sure when I'm down. So
awesome. Well, we have tons of recommendations for you.
And I would say anybody listening to this, like the Parkway Theater itself is super cool. They have a full stock bar. There's great food. There's craft beer. The theater, it's like, it's small, but it's cozy that way.
It's an awesome space.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a great theater. It's gonna be a great show. Check it out as much as you can. As much as we love those Marvel movies, they monopolize the movie theater. So if you can support independent cinema, for the love of God, do it. And this is a great film to do it with because it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Kire, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and honestly, for us, I mean, getting to watch a movie like this, be able to review it, and then being able to talk to you, and then, of course, have you come to Pittsburgh to screen it, it's a joy.
This is awesome. This is great, man. I'm so appreciative that you guys took the time to watch the film and try to help champion it. It means a lot to me. It's I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that our little rinky-dink podcast review of the film did help get some eyeballs to it. I know for us, I mean, we tracked the downloads, and actually it was one of our most downloaded episodes. So that's always good on our end. But for us, we really just want to help you get your film seen. As much as possible, because as I said, we really love the film, and it.
Thank you. Yeah.
So,
well, again, I think what you guys are doing is awesome. I think you guys, I think it's refreshing, and I think it's really important to the indie filmmaking scene to have, like this kind of stuff. You guys, what you're talking about, and giving people a voice to kind of talk about, their films and their art, right? So it's, don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going.
Thanks.
Keep going.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Kire, and we will look forward to seeing you at Parkway. Or at least John Lane will see you
Looking
at
forward to
Parkway.
meeting you.
April 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Parkway. Be out there.
Yeah. Parkway, be there. And John, where can they find you at on the Twitter machine?
Twitter, you can swat at me at the Unreal J Wolves.
You can tweet at me at LA_Croft.
You can find me at Brian Kytown on the Psycho Show page. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Psycho Show. You can also find us on the Epicast Network at epicastnetwork.com. If you have a favorite movie or question you want to throw away, you can contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com. You can also leave us a speak pipe, which is pretty cool. You can leave us an audio message. You can also subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, and we will see you next time.
First weekend in April, 3rd, 4th, 5th, Parkway.